Opening day in Kansas City is always a festive event, and this year there was a very important celebrity guest. In the season's very first quarter, Joe Namath had the Jets off and winging as he completed 5 of 7 passes, including a perfect touchdown dart to tight end Rich Castor. In the second quarter, Namath continued to fire away at the Chiefs' defense, and before Kansas City could wake up, Namath had the Jets on the scoreboard again. A touchdown pass to Eddie Bell and a 13-0 lead. It was all over but the shouting. Kansas City won 24-16 by intercepting Joe Namath 4 times and returning 2 for touchdowns. For the first time in 5 years, the Chiefs had won their opener, and for 1 week at least, they were all alone in first place of the AFC West. It was a cold, wet day in Chicago, but it didn't seem to slow up Joe Namath, who went 3 for 4 in his first possession, including this perfectly placed 30-yarder to number 88 Rich Castor, which put the Jets out front 7-0. But it's not only Joe's arm that makes him great, because you just never know where he's going to throw the ball. Joe's eye deception routine paid off on this big gainer to number 44, fullback John Riggins, who carries down to the Chicago 24-yard line where a blindside tackle uncorked the football. But Riggins' fumble was a New York windfall as number 43, rookie Clarence Jackson, scooped up the football to complete a rather bizarre 58-yard scoring play. The Jets lead 13-0. Joe Willie was hot last Sunday, and on this second quarter 77-yard drive, Joe looked to number 83 Jerome Barkham to finesse the Jets downfield. At the 18-yard line, Joe called on number 44, John Riggins, who set up a 3-yard Emerson Boozer touchdown, which made it 20-0 the New York Jets. But just before the lopsided first half ended, number 19, Gary Huff, lobbed a pass to number 83, Charles Wade, that could have been taken as a sooth sign of what was to come. Sure enough, at the start of the second half, Gary Huff and his Bears were on the Jet 11-yard line, where Carl Garrett made a one-arm stab that put Chicago on the scoreboard. On their next possession, Huff and company were back for more, and number 26, Carl Garrett, was showing the way. Second-year man Gary Huff concluded the 51-yard drive with a highly poised checkoff pass to number 86, tight end Bob Parsons. That moved the Bears to within 6 points of the Jets, 20-14. But in the fourth period, when Chicago's threat was at its peak, Joe Namath coolly responded with a 59-yard drive, which Bobby Halfield concluded with a field goal that would prove decisive in the game's outcome. For Chicago responded with an extemporaneous 28-yard pickup by number 17, Ike Hill. And although they succeeded in scoring on this drive, by game's end, The infuriated Bears found themselves victimized by Joe Namath's charisma, a man whose presence is good for 2 points any old time. Last week in Orchard Park, New York, the winds blew, at times gusting to 45 miles per hour, and then the rains came. But football is an outdoor game, so the show must go on regardless of the conditions. The elements affected everyone's performance, but one man suffered more than the rest. Joe Namath is one of the purest passers the game has ever known, but this day was not fit to prove it. At times, the swirling winds blew his passes away from wide-open receivers. Other times, the saturated plastic turf made maneuvering impossible. From every angle, the storm negated Namath's greatness, turning tight spirals into fluttering prayers. The climatic conditions relegated Namath to handoffs as the Jets had to improvise for every yard. However, New York did muster enough of a ground game to set up 2 Bobby Howfield field goals and a 13-yard John Riggins TD slosh. The Buffalo Bills did not even pretend they could beat the elements. He faced a game without a completion. So, with 94 yards in front of him, he went back to the air. Namath's pass to David Knight was the first completion for either team. But 2 plays later, the winds once again took the snap from number 12's Ariel, and number 20, Robert James, accepted the gift. The elements and the Bills had brought Joe Namath to earth as Buffalo persevered in the wind and rain for a 16-12 victory over the Jets and a 2-1 record in the suddenly wide-open AFC East.
Though neither team possesses the power it once did, both showed the ability to produce an occasional big play. New York's only big play resulted when Steve Tannen blocked a Baltimore punt, which number 22, Burgess Owens, juggled back into the end zone before finally recovering for the Jets' first score. Defensively, the Jets are a young, aggressive ball club, though perhaps a little too aggressive at times and mostly at the wrong time. While the Jet defenders too often worked against themselves, their offense could manage only some late fourth-quarter passing by Joe Namath. Riding Namath's accurate arm, the Jets moved in for 2 final period touchdowns, one of which was a close call to number 82, David Knight. But for the New York Jets, late-game heroics weren't going to be enough, as by the fourth quarter, the Colts had the contest won. But then the Jets took over on a 2-yard score by Mike Adamle and this Emerson Boozer 14-yarder. The New Yorkers maintained their 13-6 lead until the fourth quarter on the strength of a gutsy, dusty defense. Joe Namath, in trying to get his team back into the game, was intercepted by number 20, Steve Priest. And the Rams had victory number 5, 20-13, to strengthen their hold on the NFC Western League. Though improvement is evident throughout the Oilers squad, victories don't back up the fact. An occasional Oiler letdown still plagued quarterback Dante Pastorini and company. Rushing and receiving of number 43, Clarence Jackson. And New York struck back for 6. Still short by one following a missed conversion, the New York ding by way of number 32, Emerson Boozer. Namath finally put New York up front with a second quarter volley to number 82, David Knight. Looking at Knight's catch from our ground camera reveals that it was a super effort by the second-year wide receiver, which gave New York their first lead of the game. The Oilers battled back on the arm of Dante Pastorini.
That's one win more than Charlie Winter's Jets. Winter, like Arnsparger, is in his first season as head coach of a New York franchise. But when you speak of the Jets, you speak of Joe Namath. Mr. Jet is the heart and soul of his team, but the fact remains that the quarterback with the pantyhose legs has not beaten a team with a winning record since Super Bowl III. So, with not much more at stake than a championship of a city, the two New York representatives of the National Football League prepared to do battle 75 miles away from the city that they were fighting for, in New Haven, Connecticut, where the New York Giants face the New York Jets to be. Unlike Morton, who started slowly, Joe Namath was off and winging on the Jets' first series, hitting 3 for 3 and moving his offense in for a score. Namath's first pass to David Knight was good for 10 yards and a first down, and his second to Emerson Boozer over the middle gained 12 more. Then from the Giant 19, Namath used play action, got time thanks to his fake, and nailed a lonely Knight for the touchdown. Looking at the play from our end zone slow motion camera, we can see the Giant middle linebacker Brian Kelly, number 55, was concerned about coverage to his right, but he was perhaps too concerned, and his drop back into the middle zone was not quick enough thanks to Namath's play fake. Kelly's momentary indecision enabled Knight to break open behind him, hence Knight's wide open status at the goal line. Namath had moved the Jets 56 quick yards, and the Giants suddenly trailed 7-0. So Morton forsook the passing attack that had brought him bruises on his first series, cost him. Doug Kotar could not get outside and lost 4 yards. The loss forced Morton to pass, and he could not get the touchdown. Repeating the play reveals that it was a super play by number 21, Steve Cannon, who leaped over a blocker that caused the loss. The Giants had to settle for a field goal and trailed 7-3. On the Jets' second series, Namath hit his 4th and 5th consecutive passes of the game, with the 5th gaining 21 yards as the Jets were moving again. Looking at the play in slow motion, we can see why Namath was having so much success. For Joe's brittle knees, protection is the name of the game. And on this play, Namath got enough time to pose for his publicity stills before rifling another completion. Rookie Bob Burns ran a draw for 12. Then old reliable Emerson Boozer gouged out 9 more yards before his shirt stopped him. But when Namath went back to the pass, Boozer proved that while he may be old after 9 years of running back pounding, on this play he wasn't so reliable, dropping Namath's pass before doing his wounded fighter plane routine. A repeat shows why Boozer was so upset with himself. He was wide open at the 10 and saw touchdowns out of the corner of his eye. But he tried to get into the end zone before he had the ball. The Jets would settle for a field goal from Pat Leahy, who was filling in for knee-weary Bobby Howfield. And Leahy's uniquely sideward spinning kick brought the Jets into a 10-10 tie. John Riggins and his backup Mike Adamle injured, the Jets didn't figure to run. But on the first series of the third quarter, they were running at will. Bob Burns and Emerson Boozer ate up huge chunks of real estate as the Jets moved 74 yards in 16 plays into the Giant end zone. However, the touchdown by third-string running back Hank Bjorklund was wiped out by a holding penalty, and the Jets had to settle for a 22-yard field goal by inexperienced rookie Pat Leahy. The score was now tied at 13 apiece. Weeks ago. Now trailing by 7, Joe Namath began the fourth quarter by filling the air with footballs. His passing brought the Jets all the way to the Giant 14, and there he crossed up his opponents with a give to Bob Burns. The unknown rookie from Georgia was the surprise of the game with a total of 101 yards on the ground on a day that passing predominated. After Burns picked up 9 yards to the 5, Namath handed off to Emerson Boozer on 2 consecutive downs that gained a yard each. Then, from the 3, he improvised on a fake to Boozer that completely fooled the Giant defense and Boozer himself, and peg-leg Joe Namath limped across the goal line. I didn't tell Boozer. I didn't tell anyone, said Namath later. It works better that way. He especially didn't tell his coaches, who nearly fell out of their seats. It was a big play, a courageous call from a guy who, in his own words, can't even run across the street. And the Jets mobbed their inspiration. On third down, Steve Tannen's diving save on a Morton pass intended for Tucker ended the Giants' threat, forced a punt, and gave the Jets one last chance to break the tie as the clock was winding down. From his 35, a Namath to Burns swing pass with fine second effort gained 17 yards. Then Broadway Joe hit Rich Castor over the middle for 13 and a second straight first down. Now Now, deep in Giant territory, with just over a minute remaining, Namath was pressured by number 81, Jack Gregory, but found his release man, Bob Burns, and a potential loss was turned into a 13-yard gain. Two plays later, it was 3rd and 5 from the 12, and Namath had all day to wait for a receiver to come open. Like he was posing for a painting, he waited and watched Jerome Barkham beat his man in the end zone. But linebacker Brian Kelly came across and made a great diving save. It was a clutch play for the second-year man from California Lutheran, but it seemed it would only serve to delay the inevitable. For with just 16 seconds showing, Pat Leahy, a free agent signed only 2 days ago to replace the injured Bobby Howfield, had only a chip shot from the 16 to win the game. But here again, the Giants' defense made a big play in a pressure situation. The kick was blocked by Jim Steinke. The Jets' threat was over, and the game ended in a 20-20 tie. The battle for New York would now go into sudden death overtime. A 42-yarder, and if he hit it, the game would be over. Despite the officials' vehemency, Gogolak angrily disagreed with the call, although eyewitnesses behind the goalpost supported the official. The Giants had missed a golden opportunity to win, and now it was the Jets' turn to try. It was the only time all day the Giants used double-double coverage. Namath read it and burned them for 42 yards all the way to the Giant 33. Next, Namath, continuing his hot hand, pumped right and threw left to Barkham, who took the ball for 12 yards. Three plays later from the 5, Joe Namath, pressure passer without fear, calmly threw over the head of linebacker Brad Van Pelt and hit Emerson Boozer for the winning touchdown. Let's take another look at the winning play, which was called from the press box by Jet coaches. Taking advantage of Van Pelt's penchant for playing the run, Emerson Boozer was designated primary receiver, and it worked to perfection as he easily slipped behind the linebacker, number 10. So, with 6 minutes, 53 seconds of overtime elapsed, the Jets had won the bragging rights to the city of New York. Appropriately, Joe Namath has been the decisive factor in this, the first game ever in NFL history to be decided by the new overtime rules. Earlier this season, Denver and Pittsburgh played to a tie when neither team scored in the extra period. The NFL's Battle of New York had been fought in the air, and the two quarterbacks had been superb, but the difference had been Joe Namath and his play under pressure. In the Yale Bowl, Namath, definitely no Ivy Leaguer, had enjoyed one of his finest moments. For fans of football artistry, it had been much too long in coming.
10-year veteran Craig Morton was greeted unceremoniously by the New York Jets, while his counterpart, another 10-year veteran, at times seems to be posing for a portrait before unleashing his lightning. While Craig Morton had been unsuccessful on his first series, Joe Willie Whiteshoes connected on his first 3 throws, including a dart to David Knight for the early lead. In the second quarter, Broadway Craig Whiteshoes got the hot hand. Walker Gillette's 41-yarder set up a Morton rollout and an unartistic but effective touchdown flip to Bob Tucker, which gave the Giants the lead 10-7. Neither team could score another touchdown until the final seconds of the third period, but near misses are always frustrating. Just ask Emerson Boozer, number 32. Craig Morton's pass to Bob Grimm put the Giants ahead 20-13 after 3 quarters, but the best was yet to come. In the 4th quarter, with a 3rd and goal at the Giant 3-yard line, Joe Willie Gimpy faked to Emerson Boozer and then pulled off one of the year's most unusual happenings. Namath said later, "I was to take a look and decide if I could do it. The hard part was deciding whether to run. Running it was not tough, and this is from a guy who can't run across the street." Namath's score made it 20-20 and sent the game into the 2nd regular season overtime period in NFL history. The Giants won the toss and drove to the Jets' 25. Where on 4th and 1, Pete Gogolak tried to win it with a 42-yard field goal. The official under the upright ruled that the kick was wide. Pete Gogolak says he was robbed. Hungarian lip readers, please avert your glance. After 6 minutes and 53 seconds of overtime, Joe Namath passed to Emerson Boozer, and the New York Jets were the first team ever to win a regular season NFL game in overtime. Although Joe and the Jets haven't won many big ones since Super Bowl III, and only one other this season, they'll never forget the day that Joe slew the Giants in sudden death at the Yale Bowl. If there was any doubt that the Patriots' bubble had finally burst, ask the 61,000 in Schaefer Stadium who saw Jim Plunkett float 4 balloons of his own into the eager arms of Jet defenders. Plunkett was intercepted 4 times, which makes his total 13 in the last 4 games. On the other hand, Joe Namath is approaching top form. Against New England, Joe threw 2 touchdown passes, the first to surprising rookie Bob Burns, and the second off a pump fake to sure-handed David Knight. In this game, Namath and the improved Jets were avenging an earlier 24-0 shutout by these same Patriots. Or are they the same? New England didn't wake from their slumber until the second half, when Andy Johnson took the kickoff and with good downfield blocking went 95 yards for an apparent touchdown. Unfortunately for the fading Patriots, the score was called back due to a clipping penalty. There was a bright spot for New England, but it too was soon tarnished. Sam Cunningham ran brilliantly for 113 yards. On this play, escorted by number 16, who blocked better than he passed today. Sam Cunningham later broke a leg and will be out for the rest of the Patriots season. With 1:45 left, New England still had a chance to win, but Plunkett served up interception number 4 to Roscoe Word, and the Jets were winners. For an idea just how badly things are going for New England, in their first 9 games, the Jets secondary picked off merely 3 passes. They exceeded that total against Jimmy Plunkett. For New England, it was a 3rd straight loss, and their once bright playoff hopes are all but ended. For the Jets, things are looking up. It was the first time in 2 years they've won 2 games in a row. It has been a trying season for Don Shula, mostly because 11 different starters, 4 on defense and 7 on offense, have missed games due to injuries. But last week against Joe and the Jets, the Dolphins appeared at first to have everything under control. After a close inspection of the Shea Stadium turf, Joe Namath decided it was time for a little landscaping. Having established a firm foothold, Namath accounted for the only score of the first half with a play-action rollout pass to his 6'5" tight end Rich Castor, number 88. The third period belonged to another number 12, Bob Gracie, whose style is substantially different from Joe Namath's. Bob Gracie can scramble and he can run. Last Sunday, when he saw a way to the end zone, he ran for it. Gracie's touchdown tied the game at 7, and except for a New York field goal, there was no more scored until midway in the fourth period when Gracie threw a lateral pass to wide receiver Nat Moore, who did a pretty good job of getting the ball downfield to the other wide receiver, Paul Warfield. From the 6, Gracie turned what appeared to be a broken play into an easy 6-pointer to Jim Kick. Miami led 14-10, but with 5 minutes left in the game, Joe Namath turned the clock back about a half a dozen years. As number 88 Rich Castor said after the game, we showed them a formation they hadn't seen all day. They got mixed up and I got wide open behind them. Castor's 6th reception and 2nd touchdown gave the Jets a 17-14 lead, but there was still plenty of time for Bob Gracie and the Dolphins to come back. For the second week in a row, number 47 Roscoe Word killed off a final drive with an interception. The Jets had their 3rd straight victory and the Dolphins their 3rd loss of the season, more losses than in the 2 previous seasons combined. While the Jets may have deserved the victory, the Dolphins can blame no one but themselves for the loss. For in the game, they committed numerous un-Dolphin-like errors, including 7 penalties and 4 fumbles, 1 by the usually sure-handed Larry Zonka and 2 by equally sure-handed Jake Scott, who nullified the effectiveness of his 2 interceptions. The Miami errors were not limited to the offense and defense, for the usually impeccable Dolphin special teams also erred at least 4 times. Perhaps the most telling error came with 2 minutes remaining, when for the 2nd time in the game, the Dolphins were denied the ball because of running into the punter. There are many reasons why one team wins or another loses, and no one knows this better than Don Shula and a new winner named Charlie. In wind-whipped and freezing Shea Stadium, it was a perfect day to be sporting the English sheepdog look. And while the wind howled, the Jets' defense blew in repeatedly to disrupt the Chargers' offensive plans. However, the Chargers are themselves sporting an improved defense and so severely limited the Jets' ground attack. The New Yorkers finally got moving on this punt return by number 47 Roscoe Word. Then the Joe Namath Air Squadron began to warm up on this short scoring pass to number 44, John Riggins. Another Namath shot was just a little too long to Eddie Bell, who was out of the end zone. So the Jets settled for a field goal and a 10-0 lead. Somehow, with papers blowing behind him and the wind in his face, Joe Willie kept his passes right on target to number 88, Rich Castor. For the day, Joe threw for 261 yards, while his improving offensive line kept him from being sacked even once and gave him time to avoid any interceptions. Namath's passes set up two short John Riggins touchdowns and gave the Jets a 27-0 lead before San Diego could get rolling. Even then, it was too late when Charger quarterback Jesse Freitas rifled one to number 27, 9-year veteran Gary Garrison. Only Garrison's great effort made it a long game. Then sensational running back Don Woods, number 33, hit Garrison for the first Charger score of the day. At the game's end, Woods took one in himself, but it wasn't enough as the Joe-inspired Jets won their fourth in a row, 27-14. Possessing a master's touch when spiraling a football, some consider Joe Namath the greatest pure passer in the game today. But sometimes Mother Nature's interference forces even an ace like Namath and his head coach Charlie Winter to redirect their game plans. And so, during the first half, both the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets squared off and butted heads in a running duel, a fight that in 30 minutes produced not a single point. Little had changed by the third quarter, though Buffalo had begun to roll. Defying Mother Nature, Joe Ferguson then stepped back and speared number 40, J.D. Hill, also known as Mr. Clean. Hill's catch and carry put the Bills up on top. But on their next possession, Buffalo fumbled, and Joe Namath wasted little time in retaliation. Rich Castor's reception still left the Jets short by one as the not-so-automatic point after was missed, leaving it 7-6. Buffalo then summoned a big play out of its special teams, and number 26, Donnie Walker, responded. A Buffalo field goal upped the visitors' lead to 10-6. But in the fourth quarter, Joe Namath gathered his troops and set out to capture win number 6 of the season. Jerome Barkham's brilliant catch of Namath's slippery pass put New York ahead for the first time in the afternoon, 13-10. But not to be outdone, Joe Ferguson rallied his crew and Buffalo mounted a threat. With number 32, O.J. Simpson, gaining good strides as a receiver, the Bills went to the well once too often and the Jets were waiting. Number 51, Ralph Baker, iced the victory cake by returning Joe Ferguson's pass, 67 yards for the final Jet tally. Baker's run was greeted by an end zone mob delirious over the fact that the Jets had just completed a 20-10 conquest of the playoff-bound Buffalo Bills.
If it is true that Joe Namath was playing his final game as a Jet last Sunday, he certainly bowed out with a fine performance. For as usual, Joe Willie was responsible for a whole lot of offense, including this 25-yard touchdown to number 83, Jerome Barkham. But Joe's Colt counterpart, Burt Jones, was no slouch either, as he pinpointed receivers all afternoon. As the second quarter began, Mr. Jones tied it up 7-all with this flip to league-leading receiver number 26, Lydell Mitchell. But then Joe and the Jets got down to business. And one heave later, Jerome Barkham was seated deep in Colt territory. From the one, John Riggins launched himself into the Colt end zone for his first of 2 scores. Following Riggins' second touchdown dive, Burt Jones threw a desperation pass that number 51, Ralph Baker, deflected, and number 22, Burgess Owens, intercepted. "30 yards later, it was Jets 28 and Colts 7, and any way you looked at it, the rout was underway. But in the third quarter, Burt Jones continued a completion string of 6 straight with a bomb to number 86, Freddie Scott, a rookie from Amherst. One pass later, and Burt was 8 for 8 with this beam splitter to Raymond Chester, which made it competitive at 28-17 Jets. Not to be outdone in this pitching duel, Joe Namath targeted a football to number 88, Rich Castor, who won a foot race to the flag to ease the pressure at 35-17. But Burt Jones' hand was hot like no one else's has ever been last Sunday, and when his 15th completion in a row went to Lydell Mitchell, the Jets' advantage was cut to 11 points. Directly after Mr. Jones threw an NFL record of 17 consecutive completions, his luck plummeted from miraculous to miserable as number 22, Burgess Owens, ballooned the Jets' lead up to 45-24. With 21 points to make up, Burt stayed exclusively in the air, and 10 passing plays later, he backed in for yet another score. And while the second-year man didn't win last Sunday, his final touchdown made it close at 45-38. And the 385 yards he amassed from 36 of 53 throws is certainly one of the brightest spots in the worst season of the 21-year history of the franchise, 12 defeats.